Hello and welcome to day 145 of 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tomlin Nyback, and we're here talking about black issues in America, largely from a historical perspective, just to see the institution of black oppression in America and its many forms and stages and appearances. Two thoughts have emerged, primarily for me as I continue this year-long project. First part has two veins, and I'm wondering about the black mind, about the kind of the geist of America and how that expresses itself, white versus black. For the black mind, are we still behaving in the slavery ways? Was slavery so powerful? Was the conditioning so complete that the black folks are still perpetuating the behaviors of their oppressed ancestors who are in chains? The second vein probably is a no-brainer. Does the white mind of privilege, entitlement, power in the world, not just America, prevail from generation to generation? Stick around, you'll know how my thoughts and whatnot, but I want you to do your own thinking. Second burden is for financial literacy, for blacks to understand how money's spent, where it's spent, why it's going, where it's going, why we work harder and get less and less, and it keeps. We're just on this backward spiraling cycle, how we benefit so few people who have kind of mastered the system. You can kind of be any color to do that. Yet blacks do have to navigate a few more hurdles as they reach for that golden apple here in America. I'm inspired by a man named Dr. Claude Anderson. Please check him out. He's all over YouTube, easy to find. And he speaks more eloquently on these issues. We refer to his works heavily here at Racial Change. I read 3 of his books, and we reference these heavily. First book I'm going to show you, if you are interested in this subject, if you want to continue to do your own research and reading, I want you to get this book especially above all others. I'm not sure if he's updated his bibliography with any new material, but this book will get you started if you kind of have an interest in what's going on. It's a Black History Reader, 101 questions you never thought to ask. We're going to be referencing this book today, as a matter of fact. So if you have it, please come along with us. We're looking at question 17 here today. Check it out. It's an important book because there's so many dimensions. There's so much about slavery, black life in America. I had no idea what's going on, but he's got historical proofs and facts, and it's just mind-blowing what's going on. Second book I read, we referenced this as well, Black Labor, White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice, and Dr. Anderson's National Plan to Empower Black America, Powernomics. You can find Dr. Anderson at powernomics.com and the Heritage Institute in Washington, D.C. Check out hashtag #US2, symbol Black women. Find their support there. It's kind of open forum. Check out Blog Enough, BLAGGENUF, kind of a black Facebook. And it's the World Wide Web. You can find your community and your flavor anywhere. It's out there. If you can't find it, start your own community. Finally, we take a fictional look at slave life in America, Uncle Tom's Cabin. Very important book. I've read it to the end. If you get the book, read it to the end, but we check in and we slice off little cross sections and take some images of slave life in America. I say it's a fictional account, which is true, but might have some firm basis in reality to think about. Okay, so we're on question 17 out of the Black History Reader, and the question is, why did the Founding Fathers use ambiguous terms to refer to blacks in the U.S. Constitution? And I want to just pause, give a real shout out to Dr. Anderson, because we have a mutual friend. I've never met the man, but she introduced me. She said, check this guy out. She kind of saw what was happening. That's another long story. But she said, check this guy out. And one of the things, a couple things jumped out at me, the first video of his that I watched. And one thing was his economic commentary, not the specific science of economics, but the disparity in the wealth and resources in America between whites and blacks. That's one thing that stuck out. But the other thing that really jumped out is how he talked about the U.S. Constitution, and he says how the Founding Fathers used broad and ambiguous terms, and it's the way he said it, its context, and everything. I'm like, is that true? He said it in a way that made me want to do my own research and investigate. And so I did my own fact checking on his statements and whatnot. But that is one thing, and he uses that term, those string of words here in this text we're going to look at today, broad and ambiguous terms. I like the way he says that. It made me hunger to look for more truth of what he was talking about. Okay, we're going back to the U.S. Constitution. We got framers and founders and all this. We did a big series, 23 days straight, of the 56 signers of the Declaration of Independence. Now we're taking the hood off, looking behind the scenes. We're pulling the curtain back to track down the source of Dr. Anderson's claim here. And he finds it in Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. They did a lot of the heavy lifting on putting this document together. Now, this is it's very important for the formation of the nation because it's the same process you will find in declaring a business entity to be taken seriously. There has to be rules and processes, procedures, levels of management in a way, per se, as far as the structure of power. 3 branches of government and all that stuff needs to be worked out. All that, it's got to be logical. It's got to make sense. It's got to be able to be repeatable over time. It's got to last. So there was a lot of, they just didn't come together and make decisions and stuff. They let just a small number of men, white men, get them going, so to speak. And as it, I guess, is presented to committees and finally the full body, then you have what the language is going to be in this document. So Thomas Jefferson, James Madison were kind of the 2 guys, maybe initially, with the potency of the document, the brainstorm, and then as they flesh it out, bounce it off other men. Remember, there are scholars, there's educators, a lot of lawyers, university professors are part of this 56-man body to sign the Declaration of Independence, having some influence, pull, and whatnot. So, as they make public the true intentions, then they got to kind of come along with a broad brush and obscure some of the explicit items there in the Constitution. I'll tell you a quick little example of that is at work. Um, I'm kind of I have some special status and access because I can park tractor trailers, right? It's not a mysterious thing, but the masses are like, boy, that's something, something really cool, right? It was to me before I mastered it, right? But anyway, they occasionally make hot coffee in the office area, and this is uh, corporate America, white, in control, blacks, the heavy lifting. That's standard, par for the course. But anyway, they say they make coffee, fresh coffee, and I'm a coffee drinker. So, one day I'm getting some coffee, and one of the white personnel was like, that's management coffee, you know. I'm like, whatever. So I went out and bought a can. Here, man, that's a coffee. Share the coffee, man. But there's there's a limit. There's barriers. There's they in the office have coffee for the office, but us folks out there, we could have coffee out there, but I don't want to make money. It's the end of the shift. I just want a coffee and go. But it's not explicitly uh, written down. There's no signs out saying that there is a difference between employee and management. A lot of stuff is implied and whatnot. This long story short is they didn't have an explicit coffee program listed. Same way here in the Constitution. It wasn't I mean, you look inside the Constitution, its origins, the brainstorms, you're going to find slavery language in there. But to the public, you're presenting this very open, inclusive society, and we're locked arms together, and all this stuff, which is, it's laughable, right? But they that's what they did. Now there's a couple things about why they did it, and the biggest one is one that I talk about a lot here at Racial Change is that they didn't. What they did. Let's talk about what they did. They severed themselves from this monarchy, this regime that was being abusive and whatnot towards them. And then they turn around 180 degrees and do the same thing on steroids to a people based on the color of their skin. Like that's what they did in practice. But to the world, as they make these documents and foundations and constitutions and whatnot, the world is watching, so they can't explicitly be like that. That's the only way. That's the best way to express it. You see a person reaching out for privileges and trying and jamming up the system. Oh, and people putting people through changes and all that because they're just being like that. I told a guy years ago, he was just invasive, high strung, and it was coming close to getting physical, and I just explained. I said, you ain't got it like that. So America didn't want it. They didn't want to be like that publicly, anyway. inside America, they were raping, killing, pillaging, not paying for labor and whatnot. But the document could not say that, you know, America didn't want to publicly, explicitly be lumped into every other regime in the world, but they wanted to prop themselves up as the haven of community, locking arms together, patriotism, and all this great stuff. So they had to kind of devolve the language. They didn't want to be explicit about, their true intentions. Now, ironically, this is something in the world overall. You got people, the higher up you are in the power structure of the world, the more rhetoric you use, more sophism. I studied philosophy, and Socrates had to deal with the sophists, and the sophists, they're appealing, to the rhetoric is enough, just using their verbiage to justify some blatantly abusive behavior. And that's what you find always. Like, America is good for that. This study this year has really shown me the real America in which I live. I'm here now, so I gotta navigate and participate, but I don't have to be ignorant and just fall over for anything coming down the pike. So the new America, they were going to enslave, dehumanize, cripple, kill, rape, castrate these black folks, not pay them for their labor and whatnot. I was thinking today seriously at work last night, what about the infirm? What about the mentally ill? I had a uncle, severe mental handicap, unable to participate in the world, strong as a bull in his prime. But what does the slave do? Who's the advocate? What if this individual, my uncle, is separated from family that may know how to care for this individual? That he's being beaten, slapped around, and coerced, and what about someone with sickle cell? Someone who's physically unable. Sickle cell is a kind of disease more you find in black folks, where the red blood cells are misformed. Was that technology, readily available back then? Infirmed, or and people have different gifts. What who advocates for that? Old age was a concern I had a couple days ago. What do they do for in old age? So these things are very very important to think about and manage. I'm sure the white folks had plenty of that going on. So the slaves, what did the slave have? What rights? What advocacy? Some of those things. So the white regime is, they're writing this document. In the back room, it's very explicit. You can find James Madison's notes online, and you'll see language in there referring to the slaves that they're using as the basis for the Constitution. So there this this preparation. Well, I mean, slavery was already ongoing before the Revolution, but they, as they're making the transition, they had to use this language to appear altruistic and benevolent to the outside world. Here's some of the language that could clue you in while you're reading the Declaration, Constitution, other founding documents. They're using euphemisms, mild or indirect expression, um, for to replace a offensive or harsh thought. So the euphemisms go like those who are bound, those who are indebted, such persons, all other persons, unhappy lots. So that language, when you run across that, they're speaking of the slaves in that sense. Now, to white Europeans, the language is we the people, all the people, free persons, immigrants as well, or goes into that list. It's that America's little bait and switch rhetoric that they love to use to get the masses, because the masses don't study and research, critically think. They're busy with their own toilet lives. So they put in place legally this language to obscure their true intentions. Um, probably, the exploitation of black folks, such a problem. What would America be like today with that equal exchange of labor and wages, or a system, or a different system? Um, don't want to go long into it because once you talk about sharing and stuff like that, people say, "Oh, we're trying to push socialism," and then the people just cast it aside. That's America's way to use language to move things aside into another realm. But there's got to be a better system, because I'll tell you, with this system, I'm reading a book called Creature from Jekyll Island, and we are falling and descending into a financial abyss with a whole lot of grace and a whole lot of using a whole lot of techniques and using bigger and bigger numbers and whatnot, but it's just not working. And bottom line, we keep borrowing from the future and we never repay it back and all this stuff. So, but with I don't think we'd be in this financial circumstance that we're in globally, even if America had treated blacks properly from the door. You know, they didn't. Now we've got a big mess. I'm convinced a lot of the world's ills would be uh, would disappear if America said, you know what, let's just stop everything and let's do right by black folks. Sounds far-fetched. I'm an idealist, I know, but I believe if America would just put on the brakes, suspend all of your um, capitalism, getting billions of dollars, you know, acquiring stuff you'll never spend in a thousand lifetimes, and all that. Making that the value of the world. That's crap. It's really crap. You know, stop, treat black people right. Okay, enough of that. I think that's the overall sense of this year's project. So, but these white folks understood that the black folks were the machinery, the human capital of the nation. You know, we're bringing in the crops, we're sowing the land, clearing the land, and all the land stolen from the Native Americans. I wouldn't be surprised to find a Native American brother or sister, you know, doing this same type of project. I probably, I've said some things about Native Americans we'll get to actually out of the Black History Reader, but they got some grievances too. It's the somehow for some reason it's the American rite of passage to be exploited and murdered back into the Stone Age, and then you rise up from there. I don't get it. Um, so they legally put in this caste system through their rhetoric, um, disguise the language of slavery in there. James Madison, we're going to get more into this tomorrow as we're at the bottom of our time here. He personally refused his notes to be public. They're public now, easy to find on the internet. I'll have a link in tomorrow's post, although the link won't come up in the description on YouTube, but just you can Google James Madison's notes on the Constitution, and you'll find what we're talking about. Broad and ambiguous terms. So, but he refused to let his notes become public until after he was dead. You find a lot of this stuff, or one day we're going to tear off the hood and look underneath who shot Kennedy, that kind of thing. But you got to wait for the perpetrators to die off and get a few generations away, removed from the crime, and then you can come public with what's really going on. America. Okay. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. So, but do your own reading, do your own research. This idea of broad and ambiguous terms used to refer to the slaves in this new nation, and how the language is explicit for white folks and those who are actually participating in the wealth and opulence of the nation. I'm Thomas Nyback. That's day 145 out of the way. Thanks for hanging in there with me. We're just cruising along, having us a good old time here in America. Land of the free, home of the brave. See you tomorrow.